Welcome to Primetime, everybody. I'm your host, Hunter Chambers. I'm joined by my co-host, Chad and Carrie. How's it going, guys?
Doing great,
Fantastic.
thanks.
Yes, and tonight we are doing our own version of a March Madness bracket, which is going to be 16 of our favorite movies. Not necessarily the best movies, but ones that we find are our favorites. We each picked five each, and then we all agreed on one more to be put on the list. So I am so excited to get in. This will work just like any other bracket, majority rules, and we'll see what, in our opinion, is the best out of these 16 movies.
Yes, and because this is obviously, if you're new to the channel, this is a horror channel. They're all horror movies. So these aren't
Yes.
necessarily our favorite movies of all time in general, but our favorite horror movies. And some may even be our favorite horror movies or just general movies of all time,
Mhm.
actually. But because of the nature of this, because we decided to do like our favorites, um, there's gonna be some like really crazy matchups that you're gonna see, and there's gonna be just a lot of like really great movies that we have to choose between. So it's gonna be really
Mhm.
tough, but I'm very excited. And the other stipulation that Hunter actually decided on is that if you love this franchise, don't worry, we didn't include it for a reason. One of the foundational things of this channel is that the three of us are huge Scream fans. And
Mhm.
Hunter had a really great idea, decided, let's not just overload this with Scream movies and just do other movies. So, I thought that was a pretty fun idea. And I'm excited to get into it, buddy.
Yeah, Carrie, any thoughts on this before we start?
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about these movies.
All right, so let's bring up the bracket and start with our first matchup.
And yes, again, I did, well, not again, first time. I did randomize this. So the matchups are not decided by anything other than random. So it's going to be really
Mhm.
interesting. The first matchup is Evil Dead 2 versus The Shining. Like I
Woohoo!
said, these are like two big movies that a lot of people might even consider like the greatest horror movie of all time. And a lot of these not all of them, but a
Mm.
lot of these matchups are going to be like that. So, yeah, Hunter, you want to start?
All right, so I really love both of these films. I think Evil Dead 2 is a perfect horror comedy, something you can put on when you just want to have a laugh, but also really, really good scares, very good practical effects. The Shining is my number two favorite horror movie of all time. I think the intensity, the transition of Jack Nicholson's character from kind of a normal guy to kind of losing his mind is very, very well done. Some iconic scenes, some iconic scares. Shelley Duvall is incredible in this film, so I got to go with The Shining personally.
Excuse me. Kara, do you want to go next?
Sure. Yeah, I really agree with you, Hunter. I love Evil Dead 2, but it's not my favorite movie in the franchise. And The Shining, I think, is just an absolutely perfect movie. Despite everything that went on to film it, I think it's just so terrifying. The visuals, the music, like the pacing of it is amazing. So yeah, I'm going The Shining.
This is actually really, really interesting. We did like a whole favorite thing where we chose our favorite movies. I didn't put The Shining on my list. It might actually make my top 10, but I did put Evil Dead 2 on there. That would be my choice. But pairing these two movies up in such a random way is actually really interesting because Evil Dead 2 and The Shining both work mostly on like a visual level. You're watching these movies to
Mm.
experience something. And then the directors that helmed both of these movies are masters of what they do.
Mm.
Stanley Kubrick and Sam Raimi, and they're both inventing like new ways to shoot horror and like just like making it really interesting. So when you like turn off the lights and put these movies on, they're both such wild rides. I would say The Shining is really long, so it's one of those where it's like a horror epic, which is really amazing. Evil Dead 2 is like a tight, like 90-minute. It might even be shorter than 90 minutes. So they're very different in that way. And so for me, like I know like Hunter and Carrie, like sometimes we'll go, I'll put this movie above this other movie because this movie I can watch more and have a lot more fun with. And that's where I'm coming at Evil Dead 2 because I can throw that on anytime and just watch it. The Shining, I think I got to be in a special mood for, but it is on the Sight and Sound like top 100 greatest movies of all time kind of a deal. So it makes sense that The Shining is moving on.
And also like the fact that both of these were like came out in the 80s, so like it was like an 80s battle was actually really cool.
It is really cool, and a great movie moved on. So now we're going to move on to the next matchup, which is Hereditary versus another all-timer, The Thing. And we're going to start with Carrie.
Yeah. Okay. Hereditary is an amazing, amazing movie. I think it's completely fantastic. I think it's one of the scariest movies made in the 2010s. But the special effects are so amazing. I mean, they're amazing in Hereditary too. I don't know. A lot of times when it comes down to two really great movies like this, for me, it's kind of like, which one do I prefer watching? And honestly, I prefer watching The Thing over Hereditary because Hereditary is so incredibly dark. It can just be hard to get through. And it's so good when you do watch it. But for me, it's not one I can watch more than like once a year. It took me like 2 or 3 years to even rewatch it the first time. I was like, I really like The Chad, but I can't rewatch that one yet. So yeah, but The Thing, honestly, I can throw that on anytime, and it's just I can have it on in the background. I can sit down and pay complete attention to it. Like it's perfect for really any situation. So I'm going The Thing.
Hey, that's only compliments to Hereditary to basically say it's so terrifying I can't only watch it once a year. Yeah, Hereditary, it's one I put on my list. I absolutely adore that movie. The Thing is a great, great, great movie. I've teetered on it a little bit when I've had to like debate against it. Sometimes I'll get in my own head and I'll be like, is it as great as people say it is? I do think it is. I do think it is one of the masterpieces of horror. Here, the thing about it though is that I think Hereditary just has a much better story overall. Like I think The Thing is a masterpiece of, practical effects and just like holy shit. And I understand like it's like the whole, paranoia and isolation and a lot of the stuff really really works for it. I don't know. I just thought I really love what they do in Hereditary. I love the mind trickery that they have in that movie. I think Ari Aster just knocked it out of the park on the first go, and I don't think he's been able to come close to it since. And I just like really,
That's
I don't know.
Debate.
It's one that is a debate. We'll have that debate here, but it's one of those movies that came out that I was like, this is the like Halloween of the 2010s or the new generation. Like this is a foundational movie that I think is like wholly original, wholly amazing, and just super incredible. The thing is as well though, so I mean it's so hard to choose between these two. But I think Hereditary just has more for me to engage with, whereas The Thing just has kind of like the same like creature effects that you've seen time and time again that you're just like, all right, I understand the chest is going to open up, kind of a deal. Like, I don't know. It's hard to argue against two like arguably perfect horror movies. So I get where Carrie was kind of torn actually, which is an incredible feat for Hereditary to take someone to be like, should I vote for Hereditary over The Thing, even though they love The Thing, kind of a deal. I would go Hereditary just slightly because I think it just engages me more on a story level than The Thing does. And I don't think any performance in The Thing is as good as Toni Collette. So there you go. Hereditary. Hunter.
All right, this is hard because I've only watched both these movies one time. I
Oh.
watched. I was late to the Thing train for a long time because I was
Yeah.
like, one, I don't know if I was young at the time, and I was like, well, I don't know if I want to watch a movie, from the 70s, like, this old type of movie. And then as I, is it 80s?
82.
Well,
82.
yeah, but like, yeah, but still, like that mindset of like, I don't want to watch older films, like I want to watch newer films.
Yeah.
As I got older, I started diving deep into like more, 80s, 70s type horror, and I really love The Thing. I love the mystery behind it. Kurt Russell is amazing in this movie. Hereditary was deeply disturbing to a point where I can only watch it one time. I need to go back and rewatch it again, but like I want to wait until I'm in like a dark room where I can really experience it, to really encapsulate my feeling on Hereditary. But I love Toni Collette. I love Alex Wolff. I love the entire cast of Hereditary. I think the story is incredible. I think the scares are insanely good, especially some stuff in the background that you don't see that on a rewatch I'm going to look for in the background. So I got to slightly go with Hereditary, but The Thing is an all-time classic.
I didn't actually expect that because I know that The Thing is like such, high regard. But yeah, it's two kind of titans, which I'm so happy for Hereditary. And I will say, Hunter, I had the same kind of experience with Hereditary where I tried to watch it for like trivia before and in the daytime, and I was like, "Is this movie?"
It doesn't work in the.
I was like, "Is this movie as scary as I thought it was?" And then Carrie and I actually sat down not too long after that in the dark, just watched it from beginning to end, and I was like, "Holy shit, this movie works!" So I love it, but I love both movies. Actually, all four movies we've talked about so far are all timers. So there you go. Hereditary moves on, and I would probably say an upset for a lot of people. Moving on
Wait,
to,
did Hunter say Hereditary?
yeah,
Oh,
Yes.
right, Hunter? Yes.
okay.
Yes,
Sorry.
Hereditary.
Yeah.
No, I just wanted to make sure because I misheard. Sorry.
No worries.
That's
Moving
fine.
on to the next matchup is Get Out, another all-timer versus Midsommar. I told you these matchups are going to be ridiculous. You know what I mean? So here we go, and we're starting with Hunter again. We're back up at the top.
No, Chad.
Oh, it's starting with me.
Yeah,
That's
sorry,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think anyone's going to be surprised what I'm picking here. I'm picking Get Out. I like Midsommar. A lot of people, because I trash on it a lot, it's just because a lot of people ramp it up so much that I'm just like, guys, I don't understand. I don't think that there's that compelling of a story here. I think it's a lot of stuff we've seen before with a good arc for the main actress in the thing. But then again, it's almost 3 hours long, and I don't see what content we have in there that's worthy of making it that long. And then you have a whole like director's cut with it that like wants to like flesh out the characters more, and I'm like, I don't need more than 3 hours of content just to flesh out these characters that should have just been fleshed out throughout the original story. I don't know. I have issues with it. I know a lot of people love it. I'm in an extreme minority here, and it's one that I find very challenging. So it's like it's one that does a lot of things very well, especially like the cinematography and things like that. And the ending is so hard to watch for me that I'm like, the way you guys look at Hereditary is the way I look at Midsommar, where I'm like, that ending is truly like awful. That not awful bad, but awful like disturbing. That I'm like, I don't know how many times I could actually watch this movie, but I like engaging with it because I understand where people are coming from, where they talk about a lot of the like relationship stuff that they have in the movie is good. So I do want to keep engaging with that movie. But when we look at Get Out, honestly, I think Get Out was just a masterpiece that dropped that no one was expecting from Jordan Peele. It's got like a perfect screenplay, just a perfect story, a lot of great things to say about like, race relations and, the Black experience from a Black filmmaker. and it's just truly terrifying, and it has so many great performances, and it's really funny, and it's just got, I don't know. We've talked about that movie on this show a lot, and we love it. So let's see if it wins or not. Hunter.
Oh, this is so tough because both of these films are in my like top 5 of the decade of the 2010s.
Yeah.
Because like Get Out is such a perfect blend of horror comedy with a great message, with a great twist, with a really good like Jordan Peele-esque like ride all the way through. I love Todd, the TSA agent. I think he's one of the best
Or
best friend side
Rod?
characters.
Rod.
Rod, not Todd, Rod. And like just the whole experience of Get Out is great. But man, I watched Midsommar probably like 5 times already. Like that is one I can go back to and rewatch constantly. And I think it's because unlike Hereditary, where Hereditary is set in the dark, where like if you watch it, you know, you kind of get put in that dark place. Midsommar has a lot more of a brighter tone, even though the messages are very dark. The tone and the atmosphere is very open, very light. Like the Midsummer Festival is so beautiful, and you've got like all this great rich tradition that Ari Aster really dives into. And me personally, the hardest part of Midsommar is not the ending; it's actually the beginning with the spoiler alert, with the family suicide and stuff. That's the part that gets me uncomfortable. But you needed that moment for Danny to actually travel to Sweden for the Midsummer Festival and things like that. So I don't know where I'm pulling. I think I got to go with Midsummer just because I watched it like so many times, and every time I rewatch it, I get something brand new in the story that I didn't catch previously.
Carrie.
Yeah, Midsummer is really good. I think I've only seen it once all the way through, actually.
We tried to watch the director's cut, and then I think you were busy with work or something.
Yeah, so I honestly I remember like starting it, and I think maybe you switched it to something else and then finished it on your own.
I had to for debate, yeah.
Yeah.
Else we would have watched it together.
No. It's fine. It's really good, but I think Get Out for me is just like I don't it just became such a cultural moment. I think it is definitely the more important movie. And I get with Get Out what you said about Midsummer Hunter is that every time I watch it, there you pick up on something new, some new metaphor, some new message, like that Jordan Peele like put in there so subtly, or like some new connection. Like it is really just a completely brilliant film, and you like, yeah, the more you watch it, I feel like the more you understand, like the more you kind of get out of it and the more you see. And I don't know, the score is fantastic, the acting is fantastic. It's like it's got the right amount of comedy combined with scares, and like I think its briefness is to its benefit. It's just like a very tight movie. Midsummer is absolutely beautiful, and I think I love that movie. I love it, but I think Get Out is just a little bit better.
Yeah, it really does have like a perfect screenplay, I think. And I love how Carrie said the more you can get out of it, which I thought was pretty unintentionally hilarious.
There you go. Very intentionally funny.
And then the last thing before we move on, I wanted to say is it's another movie, and I keep bringing it up, on the Sight and Sound poll of greatest films of all time. The reason I bring that up is because I love it when the Sight and Sound poll of like so many people voting on this thing to say what are the greatest films of all time. There's some horror on it. I think that's really, really great.
Yeah.
TS motherfucking A.
There you go. Moving on to the next round, which is the original Halloween versus Shaun of the Dead.
This is gonna be so tough for Chad.
I mean, these are two movies that I put on the bracket, so there you go. But you know what? That's what happens sometimes when you randomize shit. And we're starting with Hunter.
Mhm.
Hunter.
Yeah. All right. I love, again, I'm going to say this all the time. I love both of these films. And that's because there is no bad movies on our list that we picked. Halloween is a classic. I mean, you don't get, I don't think without Michael Myers and without the Halloween movie being as successful as it is, you get a lot of the slashers that we get in the 80s and the 90s. It is that important because it set a template of what a slasher is. It gave us the final girl trope. It gave us everything, that we know of, slashers in general. Shaun of the Dead is a very perfect horror comedy. It's a kind of slight parody of the Dead franchise, and it really plays that very well. But with looking at the cultural impact, which is what I'm having to do because I do love both these films, I got to go with Halloween over Shaun of the Dead personally. But again, that's just for cultural impact of what it did for the horror genre.
I don't know what to do here. This is really tough because I think both of these movies are perfect in their own way.
You just got to like go into the bracket knowing that a lot of these matches are going to be like
I
that. Two of your favorite
understand.
movies.
I understand.
Okay, I'm sorry.
All right. I guess I'm going to go with if someone were to ask me what's your favorite horror movie, I feel like one of these movies is an answer I would sometimes say, and one of them is not really. So I'm going to go with Halloween. Just I guess from a strictly horror perspective, it is because Shaun of the Dead is a horror comedy and it does both of those genres very well. Halloween is just a little bit more, is definitely just a straight horror and is a little bit scary, but I love both of these so much.
Yeah, I mean, you guys definitely made the decision easier, but honestly, I was still gonna go Halloween, even if you,
Wow.
even if you guys would have said Shaun of the Dead, just because, it's a tough decision. Obviously, I think these are two near perfect movies, near perfect horror movies, and I don't think I'm not saying you said this or anyone said this, but I don't think comedy ever detracts from like a horror necessarily.
Mhm.
I think horror comedies can be both and can be both excellently. I think Shaun of the Dead's that way, like Evil Dead 2 is that way. But yeah, I absolutely adore Shaun of the Dead. I think the way Edgar Wright came out of the gate, just like with his expert directing, editing style, where he shows up to a pitch meeting for this movie and doesn't just give them the script. He walks them through the entire storyboard of the movie because he's like, look, this is how we're going to shoot it. And it's only going to make sense when you see the movie because the entire movie is in his head. And this movie is perfect because of it, and it was apparently a very tough shoot because no one had faith in what Edgar Wright was doing, or no one had full faith except for him and Simon Pegg probably. And then people saw the movie and was like, holy shit, okay, this isn't just a parody of Dawn of the Dead. This is something entirely new and exciting. But Halloween was also something entirely new and exciting, and it just happened to come out before any of us were born. And yet it laid the groundwork for so much stuff we see in the horror genre. I've argued that Halloween is the greatest horror film of all time before, and I stick by it. I think it's definitely up there. If there isn't one greatest horror movie of all time, I think Halloween still makes the top of the list, alongside a lot of other fantastic horror movies that did similar things. And I think Halloween just rules. I love watching it every year, and it's the best. So it moves on.
Awesome.
Let's see if it makes it even further. All right. Moving on to the other side of the bracket, we're only doing 16, but by 16 movies, by the way. I don't know if we said that at the beginning.
Yeah, only 16.
Yep. So now we're on the other side already. And we have A Nightmare on Elm Street versus Dr. Sleep. Hunter tried to get Dream Warriors or New Nightmare on, and Carrie and I would have none of that. So it's like, we're starting with Carrie this time. I know what she's picking.
Once again, an extremely tough choice though, because I just adore both of these movies. I'll say though that one of these movies I think is perfect, and the other one is just slightly less than perfect because of the ending is just a little bit silly. And that's not even super fair to say, but yeah, I'm gonna go, as much as I absolutely adore Nightmare on Elm Street, I'm gonna go Dr. Sleep here. It's just one of my all-time, I mean, these are both, you know, among my favorite horror movies of all time, but Dr. Sleep I've definitely cited before that question, what's your favorite horror movie? I've definitely cited Dr. Sleep as my favorite horror movie before. I think it's just one of the best horror movies of the 2010s. Yeah,
2019.
Yeah. I think what Mike Flanagan did with Dr. Sleep was just so incredibly brilliant. Just he was able to tie the book, all the, you know, The Shining the book and Dr. Sleep the book, as well as The Shining the movie, all together into this beautiful package. And yeah, everything is the acting is amazing. It's just beautifully filmed. Like the score is amazing, just incorporating that original Shining score. Shoot, I feel like there was something else I wanted to say, but yeah, I think this was such a tough movie to pull off, and I think it just came together so amazingly well. Like Rebecca Ferguson is an amazing villain in this movie. Yeah.
Yeah, no, totally. This is one that's actually really tough for me. Because you have a really not really old, but older classic, Nightmare on Elm Street, that did a lot of groundwork for horror, like Halloween did, and then you have a new-ish movie from Mike Flanagan that's a different take on an older movie that's even older than A Nightmare on Elm Street. That was so phenomenal. So this is a really tough choice. Carrie's right that the Nightmare on Elm Street is flawed, but it does have a lot of great stuff going for it. It's a near perfect horror movie in that way. You know, the ending is a little cheesy, but I mean, it's the way, you know, that somebody made a decision. And then that's what we get. But you know, everything else in the movie I think is so great. And I even think part of the ending is scary when you're like, is it a dream? Holy shit, this is creepy. But yeah, everything else in the movie is so creepy when the mom tells Nancy the whole story about what they did, and she's like scolds her, and she's like, now I got to deal with this shit because of y'all. And then, you know, she gives her the glove after all of this, like, you know, creepiness was coming into her life, and then she's like, it's real, by the way. And it's just like, holy shit. Okay. Yeah, so that movie is so great. But then what Carrie said is right. And Mike Flanagan did the impossible, basically, and merged these two feuding sides of The Shining the book, and then the movie The Shining, and then Dr. Sleep the book, and like merged it all together, and like had like Henry Thomas play, you know, the bartender, and you know, Jack Torrance kind of character. And you know, also just had a lot to say about like addiction, and you know, trauma from like your, you know, parents to children, and stuff like that, and just like, you know, did it perfectly. And just love how it's directed. Carrie swayed me. I'm gonna go Dr. Sleep just slightly, because, you know, especially I think that's a director's cut that absolutely works, because it like adds the chapter titles, it adds some like darker stuff. I think, you know, spoiler for Dr. Sleep, but the killing of the baseball kid is like longer and like creepier.
Jacob Tremblay did so good.
Yep, he did. And yeah, and it's such a great movie. Mike Flanagan really can do no wrong. Yeah, Dr. Sleep. Hunter.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I would have chosen Doctor Sleep as well. Um, I also love Kylan Curran, who
Yes.
plays Abra. She is amazing. Ewan McGregor is awesome as Danny Torrance. I think what Carrie said exactly swayed me was Mike Flanagan. You mixed the book The Shining, Doctor Sleep the book, and the movie The Shining all in one like 2.5 hour movie, and it didn't feel overstuffed. It didn't feel like you know he was trying to do too much. He really combined all three of these kind of the Torrance's life and their struggles in both the book and the movies, and really made it one continuous cycle. And that's something that a really good horror director can do, and I really love that he did that. So yeah, Doctor Sleep for me.
Absolutely. All right, moving on to the next matchup, which is Night of the Living Dead versus the Babadook. Duke. Starting with
Hunter.
me.
Yep.
This is tough for basically the same reason. You have a older classic versus a newer other masterpiece. Honestly, it's tough, but I'm gonna go the newer one. I'm gonna go the Babadook. I think the Night of the Living Dead is perfect. It covers, or like it did set the groundwork, just like Halloween, just like Nightmare on Elm Street. Um, it isn't one that I absolutely adore watching every time, but it is such a really important piece of history. My favorite part is when Johnny comes back as the zombie, and such an interesting story about like the copyright law and things surrounding it, and just such a cool idea that George Romero was able to give us, like what we think of the modern zombie in this film and stuff like that. It's so great, and it is such a joy to watch. So it pains me to have to vote for the Babadook, but honestly, every single time I watch the Babadook, I'm like, this is one of the scariest movies I've ever seen. It's like it's not quite at Hereditary level for me, but it is almost there. Every time I watch it, I'm like, this movie totally works. All the imagery, the deep messaging that they have about grief and stuff, came well before Hereditary came out, and kind of showed it how to do that, I guess. And the Babadook just really, really rules. I know a lot of people don't like the kid is a little annoying, but honestly, I think that works for how off-putting the movie is. So, but yeah,
Mm.
the Babadook I think rules. It's an all-timer for me. Both are really, but I'm going Babadook. Hunter.
All right, so after rewatching the Babadook, the kid doesn't annoy me as much as I thought he did on the first time around, but he is still very annoying. And kind of to the detriment of the movie. I understand why you wanted to portray him like that, but I think there are moments where his screaming and his crying and his kind of outbursts are, yes, they're normal, but I think in a movie you don't want to see that too often, because then it could come across as very tiring and a kind of annoying in a way. But overall, I think Babadook does a really great job at telling the story of grief through a single mother's perspective that I really appreciate, with also tying in this kind of, you know, storybook element, with the Babadook being this kind of, children's book type thing. But I also just rewatched Night of the Living Dead because I'm doing a podcast with Alec Miller on it, and that's our first episode. And I think a lot of what we see in modern day zombie films, you see it in Night of the Living Dead, but also you get an unintentional message about race as well, especially the ending where our main character gets shot, and you're not quite sure if it was because he was black, if it's because they thought he was a zombie, and it's really open ending to it's a very effective way of showing it. I think Night of the Living Dead also has one of the scariest moments, which is the daughter coming back to life and killing her mother with
Karen.
the what's it called? Yeah, the pliers or whatever, the gardening
Yeah.
shears. I
Yeah,
think
like
that
edge clippers or whatever.
That was so terrifying. So I got to go with Night of the Living Dead.
Yeah. Carrie.
Yeah, the Babadook has definitely grown on me. I didn't actually like it that much the first time I watched it, but yeah, Chad's love for it and just kind of rewatching it with like more of an open mind. I do really like it a lot more now. But I like Night of the Living Dead more. Yeah, it's just I don't know, something about it. It's just so classic. It's funny because I don't really like zombie movies, but I think I just don't really like new zombie movies and new zombie content. And the original of the Dead trilogy, I think is just absolutely phenomenal. And yeah, it's just something about the characters and the situation and how they interact with each other, and then everything in black and white, and like the zombies are like they're just kind of charming. Like, because they're scary, but they're also like you can tell it's just like people act. I don't know. There's just something a little bit charming about it. Yeah. But for me, it's gonna be Night of the Living Dead.
Totally, and that's moving on. And the next matchup is Jaws versus Urban Legend. Oh, what a toughie we got here.
Oh, wow.
Are we starting with Hunter?
I
started last
Chad
time.
started.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Hunter. Yeah. Tell us why Urban Legend's better than Jaws.
Look, I am the person who voted for Halloween H2O over Halloween during our rankings. So
you got to stop telling people that. Just
no. I stand by my choice, damn it. No. Jaws is a classic, man. This was the first movie that opened up the idea of a summer blockbuster, and it really made people afraid to go into the water, which is very, very, very great to do. But I am voting Urban Legend, and I will say this. The only reason I'm voting Urban Legend is because it feels more like a horror movie to me than Jaws. Jaws is an adventure movie that has some horror. Urban Legend is a slasher that celebrates the horror genre with horror legends, up and coming actors. It's got that Kevin Williamson type script, a very great opening scene with Brad Dourif as the pump attendant. I'm going Urban Legend just because it feels more like horror than Jaws to me.
Hunter,
I did it.
You started off saying that people were literally too scared to go into the water because of
this. Yes, but the feel of it is more adventure.
Children get eaten alive.
What's your turn?
People get murdered too.
Yeah, I'm going Jaws here. I do understand. I think Jaws is it's not a traditional horror movie. It might come into play later in the bracket, because I think it is probably, if we were just to compare movies on this list, it might win the entire thing. But looking specifically at a horror perspective, maybe not. That said, I think Jaws is enough of a horror movie for it to count, and definitely for me beats Urban Legend. Like Urban Legend is really fun, but Jaws is a completely and absolutely perfect movie. And I think it is genuinely hard. There's definitely so much suspense built into that movie. And the music, that's just it's just so iconic horror music.
Dude, Jaws is a slasher movie. It's Jaws. Jaws taking down people left and right. He doesn't give a shit. He just uses his teeth instead of a machete. I don't know how much I believe what I just said, but I do think Jaws is a freaking amazing, near perfect movie kind of deal. And I think, it rules on a horror level. I think just because it has adventure action family, maybe not family, type
It's
of
PG.
it is rated PG type somehow a type of elements in it. I don't think that makes it not a horror movie. It is about a killer shark going around killing people. If you said this is a movie about a killer shark killing people, if you said it like that, people would go, "Oh, that must be a horror movie." It's like, well, yeah, it is. It's just like, because you do have like, you have stuff that makes horror great. I think where you have not just the threat of the shark in the water, not just the jump scare of the dead body in the water when they're scuba diving. A lot of that stuff makes it great. But then you also have like the long sequence of just the people going to find and kill the shark, talking inside the boat, and they have like that drawn out monologue with Quint talking about like his experience in the war and like how so many people died of a shark attack or stuff like that. And like a lot of that creepy stuff plays into it too. So yeah, I do think it is a true horror movie. But yeah, I can understand where if you're comparing it amongst other really great horror movies, then maybe you could give the other movie an edge over Jaws, precisely for what Hunter and Carrie were saying. Although Urban Legend is not one of those great horror movies. I think it's an interesting movie. I like what it's doing. I like the Kevin Williamson-ness of it. And I like the concept because it's, you hear all these stories all the time. So this like, what if they really happened and type of stuff, which is an interesting idea. I don't know. I'm not sure if the execution is that good particularly, but I know some people like it and I do enjoy it. But yeah, I'm gonna go Jaws as well, and so that's moving on.
I'll say this:
much to
I,
Hunter.
I was partially joking on trying to like vote Urban Legend over Jaws, but I actually do think that Jaws is incredible. But I put it on the same horror level as like a Jurassic Park, for example.
Hey, look, Hunter, this is one of the most interesting things that's ever happened when we started this channel is that you randomly watched Urban Legend one day and it suddenly became one of your favorite movies. And I'm like, what the hell is going on?
Dude,
All right,
it's so fun.
And you don't have to defend it. That's really cool that you love that movie so much. Moving on to the next matchup, which is The Cabin in the Woods versus American Psycho. That's actually the last matchup. So those are all the 16 movies. And we're starting with Carrie this time.
Okay, yeah, this is so easy for me. Hands down, The Cabin in the Woods. I do not particularly like American Psycho. It's an okay movie. I just don't like it that much. I don't know. I think I don't like Christian Bale, I guess. I think that's like
like at all?
I don't. I mean, like not like a person, right? Like obviously, I don't know him. I'm sure he may or may not be a perfectly fine person, but as an actor, I just particularly, I guess I think I just see him and I'm just like, oh yeah, that's Christian Bale, and like I just can't otherwise get him out of my head. I don't know. That went way off track. I've never really particularly liked American Psycho, but I love The Cabin in the Woods. I think it's brilliant. I think it's hilarious. It's scary. It's everything you want in a horror comedy. And yeah, I think it's like for me, it's like a new modern classic.
Absolutely. Okay. Yeah. I'm on the same page with the American Psycho. Like, it's kind of like I was telling Carrie, it's kind of like a seesaw with me where like I am on the fence about it. And the last time I watched it, it swayed to the negative. And I was like, I don't even know if this is a good movie, actually. Like, I wasn't really getting much out of it. I know a lot of people love the Bale performance and they say it's like an all-timer. I can get on board with it being a very good performance. I don't know about an all-timer, but it is one of these movies that I love the fact that like a woman directed it. You wouldn't have really expected that because it's kind of like a macho movie a lot of the times, which is very
But I
interesting.
think it is like also it's like commentary, right?
Yeah.
On
Yeah,
that, like
it's complete satire on the toxic masculinity
So there you
aspect of it.
go. But yeah, I kind of want to engage on it in a different level where I read the book and then rewatch the movie, give it another shot, and see if it goes more to the positive side of the seesaw.
Mhm.
But right now, it's on the negative, and the Cabin in the Woods is very much so on the positive. I'm not sure if I'm like the Cabin in the Woods are the greatest horror movies of all time, but I'm almost there. I do love the Cabin in the Woods so much. I think it works so well. I love how connected to like the Buffy verse it is because there's like a couple angel actors in there, or not angel and Buffy actors. Tom Link, who plays Andrew in Buffy, is in the Cabin in the Woods.
Is
Um,
he?
yeah, he
Mhm.
is. Yeah. Now you'll
That's awesome.
notice when you watch the Cabin in the
Yeah.
Woods next.
Yeah.
And yeah, I love how this is kind of a take on the Evil Dead, and then like it turns into something completely different and just like really crazy, just like blending so many different horror like genres and worlds together, and it's just so wild and funny, and just has a lot of like, kind of like parody and commentary on horror, kind of like Scream did there as well. And I think a lot of it really works, and have a lot of fun with that movie. So I'm gonna go the Cabin in the Woods as well. Hunter.
All right, so both of these were my picks. I absolutely love Cabin in the Woods. I think it is a perfect horror comedy. It's the great thing about it is that it talks about horror in a way that is meta, but not too meta. Like it feels like their horror could be in their world, like all the monsters and stuff. I think the creature design is incredible. Chris Hemsworth is actually pretty damn funny in this movie. I would have gone American Psycho personally, and that's only because rewatching it multiple times, I love the performance of Christian Bale. I think is incredible. He plays such a douchebag really well, and I'm not sure if that's just because the actor is a douchebag. I'm not going to say that, but he has this persona of this kind of better than you macho experience, but deep down it's his kind of scared little boy who is this, you know, raving psychopath. And what's cool is the ending I love because you can't tell what's real and what's not. Patrick Bateman's head is so fucked up and it's so jumbled that he can't tell what's reality and what's not. So you're not sure if the last act is real, if it's fake, if it's what is it, or if it's something in the middle. I like that kind of aspect of just like not knowing exactly what's going on at the end. And then you can go back and kind of catch Easter eggs as well. Plus, I mean, American Psycho is kind of darkly funny, where Cabin in the Woods is kind of, jokingly funny, and both are incredible.
All right. Yep. So Cabin in the Woods is moving on, and then we go back to the other side, and we get to go through this thing. So yeah, we should do it like we would normally do, and just kind of
Mhm.
like go quicker through these. We've given all of our thoughts on all the movies now, but if you want to say like a sentence or so of why one thing is better, then go for it. But yeah, we should run through this, and hopefully
Mhm.
maybe could keep this under an hour. All right. The first matchup is The Shining versus Hereditary. Hunter, do you want to start?
I'm going with The Shining. I've rewatched it way more times than I have Hereditary. I think Jack Nicholson's performance is incredible, and I think the overall world of the Overlook Hotel being stuck in one location is very, very creepy. And overall, you see the transition of Jack Torrance from loving father to crazy psychopath.
Carrie.
The Shining.
Yeah, this is so tough for me actually. I might have gone Hereditary just because I think it works on a lot more levels than The Shining does, but The Shining is a masterpiece of the level that it's on. So it is really tough. I would have gone Hereditary just slightly, but The Shining moves on. All right, next matchup is Get Out versus Halloween. Carrie.
Halloween.
What'd you say?
Halloween. This very painful.
Yeah, I also would go Halloween, and it's so close, even though it's so weird that it's so close because Hereditary is so good, but Get Out is a damn masterpiece as well. But I'd also go Halloween Hunter.
I would have gone Get Out. I think I have more fun watching Get Out.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, Halloween moves on. Next matchup is that's right. We got our top two on that side. Now we go to the next matchup over here. This is going really quickly. Doctor Sleep versus Night of the Living Dead. This might be closer for Carrie. We'll see. And we're starting with
You.
me. I'll go Doctor Sleep. I think it's just epic. Honestly, I think it does The Shining better than The Shining does The Shining. In some ways, not every single way, because Stanley Kubrick made a masterpiece, but so did Mike Flanagan. I think it's better than a lot of people give it credit for. Even though The Night of the Living Dead is amazing and totally created a whole new genre and all that. It's so great. But yeah, I love Doctor Sleep so much. Hunter.
Yeah, I got to go with Doctor Sleep as well. I think Mike Flanagan took all three aspects of The Shining and made a creative masterpiece out of Doctor Sleep. Not only telling the story of Danny Torrance as a kid, but as an adult as well.
Carrie.
Doctor Sleep.
Sure, but sweet Carrie. All right. Moving on to the next round, which is Jaws versus The Cabin in the Woods.
We start with me, I think.
Hunter.
I'm going to go Cabin in the Woods. I think I have way more fun watching Cabin in the Woods. The comedy is excellent, and it ties in a lot of different horror aspects into one movie.
Carrie.
Jaws.
Yeah, I also go Jaws here. I think it is actually scarier than The Cabin in the Woods, to be honest. So I'll go Jaws. They're both phenomenal though, and for different reasons. Yep. So moving on to the next side of the bracket, we have our top four of this bracket, which are The Shining, Halloween, then another The Shining, and Doctor Sleep and Jaws. All right, so we'll start over the left side. Carrie, The Shining or Halloween?
Halloween.
Yeah, I'd also go Halloween. I think it works on more levels than The Shining, even though they're both honestly masterpieces. So that one's tough, but The Shining, works for me a little bit more. Hunter.
I would have gone with The Shining just because I really want to get Doctor Sleep versus The Shining.
That would have been interesting, but Halloween's moving on. All right, so now we got Doctor Sleep versus Jaws, starting with me.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck, dude. Yeah, I'll have it playing now. I'll say Doctor Sleep is scarier, and it's I think it works more on a complete horror level. Oh man, but Jaws is so good too. That's a tough one. I'll go Doctor Sleep though. Hunter.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Doctor Sleep as well. I just haven't watched Jaws as much time as I watched Doctor Sleep, and I think every time I rewatch it, I fall in love with Danny Torrance as a character.
Yep, Carrie.
Doctor Sleep.
Doctor Sleep moves on. All right.
Ooh,
Halloween versus
two classics.
Yeah, and two like 70, 80, 90, 2000 to 40 years apart almost.
Mm-hmm.
And a little over 40 years apart actually. And two phenomenal movies doing great things. And it's our top two here. Starting with Hunter.
This is tough. This is really tough. I'm going to go with Doctor Sleep. I think everything I've said before, plus I think there are moments that are more terrifying to me than there are in Halloween.
Carrie?
Doctor Sleep.
This actually really makes me sad because I completely disagree. I do think Doctor Sleep is phenomenal, but I think it doesn't work on a horror level as well as Halloween does because you have so much subtext in Halloween. But I could go through like a whole discussion on Halloween, but it's not winning. Doctor Sleep is winning this, just like it won our 2010s decade
Yeah.
bracket. So, and we'll have to see what's going to win our 70s
Did
bracket.
Halloween?
Halloween going to win
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, because Halloween is a top favorite in our 70s bracket as well.
It's possible, but you can tell we were a little bit divided on this. It was a little bit harder than but people really need to go back and respect these classics sometimes. Not saying you guys. I'm just talking about like a lot of people act like Halloween isn't like one of the greatest movies ever made, and it just totally fucking is. But so is Dr. Sleep, and that's why
it
it
100% is.
Yeah,
Like Halloween is 100% a classic. I just feel personally, I love the Stephen King Shining aspect more than I do the kind of Michael Myers Halloween aspect of it. And I think that Mike Flanagan taking not only the book of The Shining and the book of Dr. Sleep, but also mixing in The Shining from Stanley Kubrick, I think he did all three perfectly. And he even made The Shining better in comparison.
Yeah, dude, you don't got to sell that to me. I know that. I've actually read the Shining and Doctor Sleep books. I'm a Stephen King fanatic, and that's why I love Doctor Sleep. I didn't mean to sound like I totally disagree. Doctor Sleep is trash or anything like that. It's just I think they're on different levels, but it's close, which is so cool that you can have movies come out like today that people can go, I don't know, Halloween is like perfect, but so is this new movie that is doing something, 40 years later that's epic and amazing. So yeah. Dr. Sleep won one bracket and won another. One of Carrie's movies came out on top this time, which is really cool.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to do this again if we can find another like 16 movies that we love. I'm sure we can. There's so many great horror movies out there that we can discuss. We'll have to maybe do we did like our top fives. Maybe we'll have to do like our bottom halves of our top tens.
Oh.
And go, unless they're covered already here. Might be actually. But this is a great idea. Thank you.
16 worst horror movies. Let's do it.
I don't watch that many bad horror movies, to be honest.
We've
So.
seen enough that we could fill a bracket.
We probably
up for sure.
of 16.
We could.
Yeah, we could.
For sure. I even think 32, but I would keep it at 16. Yeah, so we don't have to talk about horrible movies.
Yep. All right.
All right. We did keep this under an hour, ladies and gentlemen. 57 minutes. Chad, do you want to do any plug before we head out?
Nah, I mean just Chadwick Webb YouTube channel, Dill Pickle Movie Network YouTube channel, this channel. Check out all our letterboxes. Actually, Hunter doesn't have one yet. And that's about it for me.
Carrie, anything you want to plug?
No.
All right, guys. If you did enjoy this, please hit that like button, subscribe. Welcome to Primetime down below. And remember, stay scared.